Type the word wine, then the name of a Windows program and press Enter. The program opens. There is no copy of Windows on the disk, no virtual machine, no license. Most people assume something is emulating Windows. Nothing is. The tool says so in its own name. Wine is a recursive acronym. Wine is not an emulator. In the next 14 minutes, you will understand what actually happens to a Windows program the moment Linux runs it, why some games run faster this way than they ever did on Windows, in the one category of software that will never work, no matter how good the translation gets. Start with what people think is happening, because all three of the usual explanations are wrong. The first wrong answer is emulation. An emulator pretends to be different hardware. DOSBox pretends to be a 1990s PC. QEMU can pretend to be an ARM processor on an Intel machine. That means reading each machine instruction and simulating what the original chip would have done. Emulation routinely runs 10 to 100 times slower than native. Wine does none of that. The second wrong answer is a virtual machine. VirtualBox and VMware run a real copy of Windows inside a window. That works, but you need a Windows license, a full installation, and several gigabytes of RAM sitting idle. Wine has no Windows inside it. The third wrong answer is that the program gets recompiled. It does not. The executable on your disk is untouched. What is actually true is simpler than any of those. A Windows program is x86 machine code. Your Linux computer has an x86 processor. The instructions in that file already run on your CPU. They always did. That was never the problem. Add two numbers, move a value into a register, compare and jump. Those instructions do not know what operating system they are on. They are just instructions, so Wine does not translate a single one of them. The processor executes the Windows program directly at full speed exactly as it would on Windows. The problem is everything else. The moment that program wants to open a file, draw a window, allocate memory, or read the clock, it cannot do that itself. It has to ask the operating system. It asks by calling a function inside a Windows system library, create file, regopenKey.ex, get system time. Those functions live in files named kernel32, user32, gdi32, and ntdll. Every Windows program depends on them. On Linux, they do not exist. So Wine ships its own kernel32, its own user32, its own ntdll. Same file names, same function names, same arguments, same return values. Different code inside. When the program calls create file, it lands in Wine's version. Wine reads what the program asked for and calls the Linux equivalent underneath. In that case, open. The program gets back exactly the kind of answer Windows would have given. It never learns anything changed. That is the whole trick. Wine does not emulate a machine. It answers the phone. Roughly 15,000 functions have to be answered that way, and Wine has been implementing them since 1993. That number explains the timeline. Bob Amstad and Eric Youngdale started the project in 1993, targeting Windows 3.1. Alexandra Juilliard took over in 1994 and still leads it. The first stable release, version 1.0, arrived in 2008, 15 years for version 1. The delay was not incompetence, it was the source material. Microsoft documents most Win32 functions, but the documentation describes what the functions are supposed to do. It does not describe what they actually do. Programs depend on the actual behavior. Undocumented return codes, specific error values in specific failure cases, quirks that Microsoft itself preserves for backward compatibility.
So the Wine developers cannot read the documentation and write the function. They have to determine the real behavior by testing, then write a replacement that behaves identically, including the mistakes. They also cannot look at Windows source code. Doing so would contaminate the project legally. The implementation stays cleanroom by necessity. 33 years of writing replacement parts for a machine whose blueprints you are not allowed to see. The deception runs deeper than function calls. Wine has to reproduce the entire Windows environment. Windows programs expect a registry. Wine implements one and stores it as plain text files inside a directory called a wineprefix. Windows programs expect a C drive. Wine gives them one. It is a folder named drive_C inside that same prefix. The C drive that program is writing to is a directory, nothing more. Windows programs expect the NT kernel to coordinate between processes. Wine runs a background process called wine server that stands in for it. Now the graphics problem, which is the hardest part. Games do not just call the operating system, they call DirectX, Microsoft's graphics interface. DirectX only exists on Windows and Xbox. Linux uses Vulkan. So a second translation layer sits on top of the first. It is called DXVK, written by Philip Haribole and first released in January 2018. DXVK takes Direct3D 8, 9, 10, and 11 commands and converts them into Vulkan commands in real time while the game is running. A separate project, VKD3D Proton, does the same job for Direct3D 12. Then, in August 2018, Valve packaged all of it together and called it Proton.
Wine plus DXVK plus VKD3D Proton plus an audio layer wired directly into Steam. That package is what runs on every Steam Deck. Now the part that explains the speed. Windows programs coordinate their threads using synchronization objects built into the NT kernel. Mutexes, semaphores, events. Linux has no exact equivalent. For years, Wine approximated them by routing every one of those operations through Wine server. A heavily threaded game can perform thousands of those operations per second. Each one meant a round trip to another process. That was the bottleneck. Not the graphics, not the CPU, the waiting. A CodeWeavers engineer named Elizabeth Figura built two workarounds for this, called eSync and fsync. Both pushed the work into userspace to cut the round trips. They helped, but they never matched the exact behavior Windows defines. Some games stayed broken. So Figura built the real fix, a kernel driver that implements the NT synchronization primitives directly inside Linux. It is called ntsync, and it appears on your system as a device file at /dev/ntsync. She presented it at the Linux Plumbers Conference in 2023, and it merged into the mainline Linux kernel in version 6.14. Wine 8.06 shipped in January 2026 with support for it. The benchmark numbers are large. Dirt 3 went from 110.6 frames per second to 860.7. Resident Evil 2 went from 26 to 77. Call of Juarez went from 99.8 to 224.1. Now the part most coverage leaves out. Those numbers compare ntsync against plain upstream Wine with no workarounds at all. Not against Windows, not against Proton. If you already play through Proton or through the Steam Deck, you have been running fsync for years. Your baseline was never the slow number. The realistic gain for most people is far smaller. Figura's own patch documentation estimated 50 to 150% for most games, and Dirt 3 sits at the extreme end of that range. The architecture change is real. The headline number is not the number you will see. That still leaves the question the hook opened with. How does a translated game ever beat the same game running natively on Windows? The answer is that translation is not always a tax. Sometimes it is a bypass. Direct3D11 was designed in 2009. It hides the graphics hardware behind a thick driver that decides on your behalf when to allocate memory, when to compile shaders, and how to submit work to the GPU. That driver does a lot of guessing, and most of that guessing happens on one CPU thread. Vulkan removed almost all of it. The application states exactly what it wants, and the driver does close to nothing.
Work gets submitted from multiple threads at once. So when DXVK converts a Direct3D11 game to Vulkan, it is not just changing the language. It is moving that game onto a lower overhead path than the one Microsoft's driver would have used. In games that were bottlenecked by CPU driver overhead rather than by the graphics card, that swap wins. The translated version has less work to do per frame than the original, which is why DXVK also runs on Windows. People install it there to speed up old Direct3D9 games on Microsoft's own operating system, using a translation layer built for Linux. So what does not work? The wall is anti-cheat, and it is worth understanding exactly why. Kernel-level anti-cheat loads a driver into the Windows kernel to watch memory and processes. Wine has no Windows kernel to load a driver into. It reproduces the interfaces programs use, not the kernel itself. Epic added Linux support to Easy Anti-Cheat in 2021. BattleEye followed. Both work, both have worked for years. Enabling that support is a setting the game publisher turns on. Many decline. So when a multiplayer game refuses to launch on Linux, the compatibility layer is usually not the reason. The publisher left a checkbox unchecked, not because of a technical requirement, because of a commercial one. Beyond anti-cheat, the failures shrink fast. Some enterprise software installs its own kernel drivers. A handful of DRM systems check for things Wine does not reproduce. Everything else is a bug report, not a barrier. If you are deciding whether to switch, check before you commit. For games, look up each title on protondb.com. The community reports are specific and current. For multiplayer games specifically, check areweanticheatyet.com. It tracks which publishers enabled Linux support and which refused. Inside Steam, open Settings, then Compatibility, and turn on Steam Play for all other titles. That is the entire setup. For software outside Steam, Bottles and Lutris both manage prefixes for you. To check whether your system has the kernel driver, run uname-r for your kernel version, then ls/dev/ntsync. If the file is there, you have it. Here's what makes this whole thing remarkable. The program never finds out. It asks for a C drive and gets a folder. It asks for the registry and gets a text file. It asks the NT kernel to schedule a thread and gets a Linux driver. Every answer it receives is the right shape and the wrong origin. Microsoft never opened the specification. They never had to. Volunteers rebuilt it anyway, one function at a time, by watching what the original did and copying the result. The software runs. It just doesn't know where it is. Subscribe. Pseudo-bit logic is just getting started.